In this podcast, I visit with Robbie Closson. Robbie is the founder of Bausen Technology in Kerrville. He grew up in the hill country. He joined the Marine Corps after high school and then founded Bausen Technology. It's a fascinating story of a local boy who left and came back to start a business in the hill country.
The Texas Hill Country is one of the most beautiful places on earth. In this podcast, recent Hill Country resident Tom Fox visits with the people and organizations that make this one of the most unique areas of Texas. Join Tom as he explores the people, places, and their activities of the Texas Hill Country.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. Welcome back for another episode of the Hill Country Podcast. We're going to take things in a little bit different direction today. Earlier this year, I met Robbie Closson because he helped me with some computer work. And it turned out he has a great story. So I asked him if he would come on the podcast and tell us a little bit about his story and kind of growing up in the hill country. So, Robbie, first of all, thanks so much for taking the time to visit with me today.
Yes, sir.
So, as you know, this is the Hill Country Podcast, and I'm telling the story of the people, places, and things of the hill country. And frankly, you're a hill country boy.
I have spent a good portion of my life here, for sure, to say the least.
So did you go to high school here in Kerrville?
Yes, sir. I graduated from Tivy in 2006, and then immediately went in the Marine Corps after that.
Why the Marine Corps?
Well, I figured I was going to go into the military. I might as well choose the hardest branch. I had definitely seen a lot of people out here in Kerrville and the surrounding hill country kind of, graduate high school and then not do anything else. I love this place, but it does severely limit your options if you never leave here, unless you have, some other way in, your parents have some career path or some field for you. If you're kind of just everyday average Joe, like I said, it's a real limited out here.
So what, did you play sports or do anything, have any interest in high school?
No, not really. I was just more of a kind of a nerd person, played video games, hung out with my friends. We went out shooting and stuff every so often, but besides that, not really physically active, which of course made it a little bit more difficult joining the Marine Corps.
So where'd you do your basic?
Camp Pendleton. Everybody west of the Mississippi goes to San Diego. Everybody west and women go to Camp Lejeune.
And when did you become a Marine Corps PFC?
My graduation date was October 16th, 2006. We went in July of 2006. I think it was July 11th is right after the 4th. And, did the couple months of boot camp training. Luckily, I didn't really have any issues there. I didn't get stuck in one of the medical battalions or anything else like that. I was able to go through, do boot camp, and then graduate and get out.
What was your first assignment when you came out of boot camp?
Funny enough, after you get out of boot camp, they send you to they call it MCT. It's like the after boot camp training where they teach you a little bit more tactics and some other stuff like that. And then after that, I was supposed to go to my job school, which was out in 29 Palms, which if anybody's ever been there, they know it is absolutely nothing out there. They call it 29 Stumps. It's actually the largest Marine Corps base, and they use it for artillery training because there's nothing out there. So my job school is out there, the Marine Corps Communication Electronics School, but the entire class program was backed up like 3 or 4 months. So you got there, you sat around for a while, and if you didn't get picked up to a platoon, they just sent you home on a recruiter's assistance. So, PFC Robbie Closson getting out and then coming back to Kerrville to come help recruit other people in the Marine Corps.
Did you eventually get additional training in the Marine Corps and take a full-time job, or were you a recruiting assistant for your tenure?
No, thank goodness. No, I could not do that job. I am the worst recruiter in the world. I could not have stayed in that job field. But yeah, luckily after Christmas time, they finally freed up enough job schools spots so I could go back, went through the Marine Corps Communication Electronics School for, I think it was like 2 or 3 months. That was really about it. And once we did that, my first duty station was in Iwakuni, Japan. That place was beautiful. It was awesome. I really lucked out getting stationed out there. I always wanted to go to Japan. So, I happened to land in a real small air base out there, too, which was kind of odd. The entire base was only like 2,000 people, including dependents. So it was a real tiny military base in Japan, and it was great. It was beautiful out there. And then I happened to get stationed out there with one of my buddies. His name's Eduardo Barrios. He actually stayed in. He's actually, I think, just about to pick up captain. But I got stationed out there with him. Had a really good time. I also originally was assigned to the Marine Wing Support Squadron 171. Those guys would usually go out and do like training missions. They'd go out to Korea and stuff every so often and just, do training missions all over Japan. I lucked out and got transferred to the headquarters unit. I basically worked in a vault for about 2 years, an office with 0 windows, recirculated air going 24/7. It was a pretty sweet gig. The only other kind of odd thing is that once again, because the base was so small, so if there was ever any kind of like labor shortages anywhere, they would just start yanking and pulling people from every department out there. So in addition to being a communications electronics person, I also did barracks duty, so I was a barracks manager. I would help Marines, get rooms, fix laundry equipment, and just kind of make sure the area was cleaned up every field day. I was also a gate guard for about 2 or 3 months as well, doing 12-hour shifts, 2 days on, 2 days off, 2 days on, 2 days off, and then 3 days on, 3 days off.
So were you rotated back to the United States for another stationing, or did you leave the Corps?
No. I did that for about my first 2 years in. Once I left Iwakuni, Japan, they sent me back to the basically the NCO course for the Communication Electronics School. So I did that for, I want to say probably like at least another 2 or 3 months. They really taught us on like some server stuff, more higher level networking equipment, and some actually satellite transmission devices, which, funny enough, I ended up using at my last job in the Marine Corps. I worked for the one MEF commanding general. His name was General Joseph Dunford. He was actually the Joint Chiefs of Staff, I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and he was also the assistant commandant. So I got a really cool opportunity being his IT support, because he would travel all over. We would go to Afghanistan at least once a quarter. It's because he would have to do like in-person meetings with the staff that was out there. So we would, leave out of Camp Pendleton, which is of course Southern California. We would go to the MacDill Air Force Base, because he was also had a billet there. We'd stay there for a couple days, and then we would travel overseas. So we would, travel out. We'd hit Ireland a bunch. We'd hit Ireland or Italy only for like one night, so the pilots could rest. When they were flying for 8-10 hours straight. So I got to see some cool sights, thankfully, to that. And then we would be in country for maybe about a week, maybe 2. We were not there for very long. And of course, if you're hanging out next to a general, you don't generally have to worry about getting shot or blown up anywhere. So I was fairly fortunate. I know a lot of people had to go to Afghanistan for a year plus or something, and I would see my old platoon that was deployed out there, like, oh, hey guys, how's it going? Anyways, later I'm out, and so it was a pretty great job. It also exposed me to a kind of like a different way that people live. Growing up in Kerrville and growing up in Southern California as a kid, you don't really see, or at least I didn't see at the time, how a certain segment of the population lives. And one of the places that we would stop out in the Middle East was this place called Bahrain. And Bahrain is like the Middle East Las Vegas. That place is phenomenal. Like you'd see people in there from all over the UK, other parts of Europe. They would go there as a vacation destination. So you would see these just like absolutely affluent, just wealthy people, just beyond means, out there partying it up, having a great time. And it's like, I thought this was the Middle East. I thought there wasn't supposed to be, people drinking out here and like partying and having a great time. But sure enough, there's that little spot in Bahrain. They're like, no, it's okay. This is all I can't see in here. So you can just go ahead and party and have a great time.
All I can't see in here.
Yeah, it's kind of a real weird rule. Like they couldn't, for some reason, Allah couldn't see in Bahrain, and then he also couldn't see inside of planes on tarmacs, because as soon as the flights would close the doors, like, oh yeah, we can sell alcohol and you can drink here. It's like, but once again, like we would be like in Kabul or somewhere. Like, we're like right in the middle of Afghanistan. How is this possible? But yeah, I don't make the rules, so somebody else did. But that was my last job in the Marine Corps, and that was, it was also one of the reasons why I got out. I was already going to get out just because the Marine Corps mentality to me did not mesh very well. But after getting treated like a regular person again and like a regular human being instead of a Marine, it was real hard to sell it to, oh yeah, just go back to the regular Marine Corps and go back to platoon formations and then having to check in and all this other stuff. I was like, nah, I don't think so. I'm not going to do that. But
So when were you discharged?
It was in July of 2011.
And what did you do upon discharge?
I already had a job lined up. I worked at Geek Squad for about a year when I was going to UTSA. I was originally studying to go for an electrical engineering degree, but because I was in the military so long, and I did not take any kind of classes really while I was in, my math skills had extremely deteriorated. So I was real behind on my math. So I kind of had to start at like algebra again and then work my way up. The advisors at UTSA failed to mention that, hey, if you start at this point, you are going to get painted into a corner degree credit-wise, because you have to have such a high level of math in order to do engineering, obviously, looking back now. And so I hit a point where I would have been stuck for like the next 2 or 3 semesters just taking like 1 or 2 math classes in order to get myself caught up to where I needed to be to take the rest of my classes. So faced with that, I was very upset, obviously. I wasn't going to try to burn my VA education benefits on 1 or 2 classes for 2 semesters. That just would have murdered my benefits for no reason. So at that point, I was dating a girl at the time. She's now my ex-wife, but we made the decision to come to Kerrville, start trying to open the company. And I was started going to Shriner while also starting the company, because as I'm sure you know, starting a company, just because you started, people do not start busting your door down for your help. You have to establish a clientele base and everything else like that. So eventually, after going to school for about a year at Shriner, I had enough customer base where I was like, I can't do school and work full time. So it worked out pretty well.
Let me go back to, you briefly mentioned you work with the Geek Squad. Mm-hmm. I have met some great folks over the years that work with the Geek Squad. Some mm-hmm. of them have really risen up. They've stayed with Best Buy, mm-hmm. and they've risen up much higher up to a store manager. That's probably the highest level I've met. But mm-hmm. what was the Geek Squad experience like for you?
It's actually one of the things that kind of spurred me on or gave me the confidence to be able to start my own company. Just because I remember working there, and then we would have people coming in all the time from Kerrville, Bernie, and they would say, hey, I drove all the way in here. I need your help right now. And that's not really the way Best Buy would work. They're like, okay, you can check your unit in with us. We'll get back to you in a couple days. And of course, that does not always work for everybody. So I remember talking to random customers and like, well, I know there are several computer repair shops out in Kerrville. Why don't you just go to them? And they're like, well, I don't want to deal with them. I don't trust them. And so I was like, well, that's a real low bar, is just trusting somebody. If you can't establish that with a customer base, I was like, oh, well, surely there's room out there for another computer repair place that at least tries to the best of their ability to meet people's needs in an ethical way. So.
Well, and that really leads to what I wanted to maybe visit with you about next, which is that you talked about the decision to found your company, but mm-hmm. what was it like? Well, first of all, what's the name of the company? And then what was it like early on? How did you establish that trust, and how did you build up a clientele?
The name of the company is Bausen Technology, LLC. I was actually talking about this exact same issue the other day, of that, people out in the hill country, Lord bless them, because the amount of trust that people place in you was pretty high. Whenever I was first starting the company, I was working out of my house because I couldn't afford the overhead for a store. And so people would trust me with their electronic devices, meeting them at a gas station and saying, hey, I'll be here, or I'll bring your stuff right back in an hour. Just meet me here. And so people would do that for me. And eventually, we developed enough of a customer base, and people, just by word of mouth would start referring us out to their, friends and family. And that's kind of the basis of, almost every other business that I've heard of, is that people, start out of their house. You can afford enough money to get a storefront, and then you start getting a little bit more legitimate from there.
So when did you make the jump to, we're here in your store recording this podcast. When did you kind of go all in and get storefront and start to hire employees?
Let's think. So we started the company in 2013. We were probably running it out of the house for like a year and a half, first 2 years. The first storefront was actually a store back. We partnered up with the Restoring Images Barbershop. Shout out to Josh Frosto for being a great guy. He let us just rent the back half of his store because at the time his business only had like 2 or 3 barber chairs. And so they had this huge, like, kind of empty warehouse in the back. And so we just built a small office back there, and we were there probably for 2 years, I want to say. And we'd have people, drive around the back of their shop or come through the barber shop to come see us. And, we'd fix their devices there and, send them on their way. Our first kind of like legitimate storefront was at 1162 Sidney Baker South. And we were there probably for at least 5 years or so. It just got a little bit too small. And then for an employee, I want to say the first guy we hired was this guy named Castle Qualls. He was a friend that I've known since high school. And he worked for me for probably about a year. And then he just wasn't real comfortable working in the tech field. You do kind of have to be willing to make mistakes and learn things the hard way. And sometimes that's a little bit too nerve-wracking for people. Understandable. So he stopped working for me, and then I hired another guy named James, and also a guy I've known since high school, and he picked it up much easier. He was a little bit more confident in that aspect. And then the other gentleman we hired about a year ago now, and now we just put another job posting in Indeed.com. We just need a front desk person to kind of help us manage customers and everything else. So it's kind of just been a slow, steady growth. And then just when I think we plateau out for a while, we have a large growth again. And then we try to stabilize out and then, wait for that next big growth and just try to be prepared as possible.
Well, I think I shared with you the story, and I can't remember her name. I'm sorry, but I was at some event and one of your ex-teachers told me about you. So I was, word of mouth is really the best. Mm-hmm. And I really love the story of organic growth, particularly how you just described it. And obviously this is an audio podcast, but for those not watching, since it's not video, which is everyone, Robbie just kind of showed how he would flatten up, then increase a little bit, and then there'd be a big spike. And I kind of analogize that to when you have a big meal, you have to digest it. Mm-hmm. And once you digest it, then you're ready to move on to do whatever. But then you have another period where you digest that growth, and then you're ready for that next spike. And that's really been your experience here at Bausen.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's interesting because it happens for different reasons. So the first real kind of growth we had, we were just like every other small company starting out, we were doubling and tripling our growth every quarter or so. So we were making leaps and bounds, and then you kind of stabilize out because just due to man hours and coverage, you kind of figure out, well, one person working at this rate, this is the maximum amount I'm going to get. So if we want to go past that, we have to have somebody else there to help pick up the slack, make sure I don't drop or miss any jobs just because I can't be everywhere at once. And then once you kind of get somebody else and you kind of get them up to, 80, 90% capacity as far as having no slack in the line, you can try to add somebody else in, and then you get that person up to, 80, 90% of capacity, and then you hire somebody else in theory. So, one of the things that we kind of made us stand out as a company, really kind of gave us a leg up, is that there weren't really any kind of established companies out here doing phone repair work. There were, several different computer repair shops out here. So it's a little bit harder to make your name when there's already established people out there. They have established customer base, and, why would they why would they trust a person at a gas station with their digital life, basically, when there's several other places that have storefronts that if you do have a problem, you can be like, hey, knock, 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 give me my stuff or I have an issue. So being able to do phone repair work really kind of set us apart and gave us our opportunity to, have people know about us and then give us their other computer devices. And then, so that's what gave us our kind of first leg up. And then the more recent stuff that's really been helping us out is we've been expanding into doing more business related work and kind of managing companies that have on-site servers, which I had a little bit of training in the Marine Corps and a little bit of experience through that, but I've kind of just been thrown into a full force. And so now we have a whole other revenue stream just from, managing and working with businesses that have on-site servers. So, and just like anything else, there's a huge learning curve. These past 2 weeks for us have been real rough. I've been staying up late, researching issues that we've had, just kind of banging my head against the wall, trying to, get some issues resolved. And then just like with anything else, you'll make a little bit of progress, and then a whole new other slew of issues happen, and then you have to research out. So it's, it's definitely interesting, being able to work in a field that's constantly evolving, constantly changing. The answers you had, 6 months, a year ago are not the answers you have today, and you have to be up to date on that kind of stuff to even be slightly relevant in the field.
So do you see this business services work in terms of either managing an overall IT portfolio in addition to your repair work as really a growth opportunity for you down the road?
Oh yeah, without a doubt, and it's one of those things that the Hill Country as a whole is pretty tech starved. I mean, like I said, there are several other businesses that are out here that do a fine job doing IT work and such, but there is still a real need for people that are out there that are looking to learn more things and that are willing to kind of put in the work to keep companies up and running. And that's kind of where we've been at. A lot of times people were real hesitant, especially in the business world, to switch away from whoever they've had, just because, once again, it's kind of like a tech desert out here. People aren't willing to make a change because they're like, look, this person has been with us for 6, 7, 8, 10 years, and they've kept us afloat. They've kept us going. Even if the rates are real high, they're willing to pay it. So I understand why people are real hesitant to switch to us, or they just want to stay with how things have been working. Completely understandable, but there is a market for that. Some of our larger customers that we've gotten this past year has just been other IT people that kind of do it part-time, and they have another full-time IT job working somewhere else, and they're like, look, I don't want to do the after-hours work anymore. I don't want to go to work on the weekends. Like, will you please help these people? It's like, oh yeah, sure, why not? I'm already doing it freelance already. Sure, I'll take on those guys. And so that's been real awesome for us, is, like I said, not only just as a business opportunity, but it's great that people are willing to give us a chance and trust us and believe in us to at least say, hey, give it a shot, help them out. And if you have any issues, you can still come to us, but please take care of the day-to-day stuff for me. I don't want to do that anymore.
So you're in Kerrville, which is Kerr County, which is huge, but that's dwarfed by the size of the Hill Country. So do you really have a portfolio of work, at least in Kerr County and perhaps throughout the Hill Country?
Most of our larger business customers are here in Kerrville. We have some other ones out in Fredericksburg. Kerrville is kind of like the hub for the surrounding cities, Junction, Mason, Stonewall, Bandera. So we get tons of people that are, they just come to us especially for phone repair work, because, that far out, that's a real tech desert. There's nothing out there. We do have a fair number of customers that, will come in, they'll drive 30 minutes to an hour just to get somewhere with a little bit more tech support than, where they're normally at.
So now that I know you have this business component to Bausen, could I ask you for maybe if you can give one or two pieces of advice to the business owner who has either a small business or multiple employees? Do you counsel them, or at least give them some advice on basic security or other issues?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. The biggest, and I would say probably the easiest thing to do is just make sure your stuff is backed up. You basically want to go for like a two-prong approach. You want to have a local backup, so you either want to have like an external hard drive or a server on site that you can save all of your information and data to, and then you want to do an off-site backup. So a company like Carbonite, iDrive, just somewhere else, on the event of like your building burned down, you didn't just lose everything in your business. So the two-prong backup approach is really important. The other thing that people neglect to do, and it's because it costs a little bit of money, is get a paid-for antivirus system. I don't know how many times I've seen companies that, those guys are doing well enough. They obviously can support a little bit more expenditure on certain IT things, and they're using like AVG free or Avast for free, and it's like, you guys are really setting yourselves up for failure on this. Everybody knows about ransomware. That's been real prevalent in the news for the past couple of years. Those free antivirus systems will do nothing about that. Whoever your favorite flavor is, Norton, McAfee, the company we use is called Kaspersky. Or I'm sorry, we used to use Kaspersky. We use ESET now. Those guys have kind of seen the writing on the walls and are doing much more about being proactive. So if they start seeing random files, changing the files of everything else on there, it's like, hey, this is not good. We're going to go ahead and slap this down. And that's worth $40 a seat per user. The other thing I definitely see people running to all the time is not keeping their information kind of up to date. I've seen it happen too many times where, a company will have, some user login passwords for whatever the service is, Microsoft, their own proprietary software and whatnot. And it's like, okay, well, something's not working. We have to reinstall this. Do you have the credentials for this? And they're like, I have no idea. I'm like, okay, well, let's go through and do the reset then. And it's like, oh yeah, no, I don't have that phone number, or I don't have that email address. I'm like, you have effectively locked yourself out of this. There's nothing we can do. You can try crying and screaming at, Gmail or Yahoo or whoever your email service provider is. But at the end of the day, if you can't prove you are who you say you are, they're going to tell you, have a nice day, good luck, and start again. And that's a real hard lesson to learn, especially when it's something that's so commonplace. It's like, just please keep your stuff up to date, please.
So, Robbie, we're near the end of our time for this episode, but I do want to ask you one final question that goes back to your service in the Marine Corps. If there's 2 or 3 things that you got out of the Marine Corps that you still use today, could you tell us what those might be?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fairly straightforward. First one would, obviously just be on time. If you can't be on time, people don't take you seriously, and at that point, you're fighting an uphill battle, credibility-wise. If you show up ahead of the person who you're going to be working with, or you show up on time, it shows that you're going to be punctual. That is literally the first step to doing anything. The second thing I would probably say is just, determination. You do have to put in a lot of after hours work, especially, if you do run your own company. I'm sure I'm not telling anybody that owns their own company nothing new on that front, but you have to put in a lot of work and a lot of hours that, don't pay any money. It's just something that you have to do to, make sure the IRS doesn't foreclose your business or anything else like that. So you have to do those things that you're like, I don't want to do this. I don't see a point in this. This has no return besides, making sure you're above bar. And then lastly, I would say the keeping yourself physically in shape. I'm definitely not an expert by any means. Obviously, I'm definitely not not in peak military form anymore, but the ability to go out and work out just to burn off the extra energy that you may have. And also it kind of helps, at least helps me like make sure my mind's a little bit more focused. I know if there's a couple days I go without going to the gym, I get more irritated. I know things aren't going as smoothly, and things start going poorly. So if you can, go burn off that extra energy, your body will release all the extra endorphins. You're like, okay, yeah, things are terrible, but things are always terrible. I can deal with them a little bit better now. So I would probably say those 3 things are probably my biggest takeaways anyways.
Robbie, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to visit with me. If any of our listeners wanted any more information on yourself or Bausen Technologies, where could they go to find out?
You can visit our website, which is Bausen, BAUSEN, Tech, TECH.com. Or you can just give our office number a call, which is 830-315-4660. Or just stop by our office. Our address is 507 Junction Highway here in Kerrville.
Robbie, thanks, and I look forward to continuing this conversation.
Yes, sir.
This is Tom Fox. Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Hill Country Podcast. I'm going to link to Bausen's website in the show notes. So if you need any computer or tech services, I suggest you give Robbie a call. I'm always looking to tell the story of the people, places, and things of the Texas Hill Country. If you'd like to be on the Hill Country Podcast, give me a shout. I'm at tfox@tfoxlaw.com, or you can ring me at 832-744-0264. This is Tom Fox. The Hill Country Podcast is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.